Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Jennifer Oliver O'Connell. As the girl turns, and you are in my orbit on Substack, Red State, X, wherever you may find this video or even a snippet of this video. Well, happy end of June. It has been quite a bit of time since I communicated via video to all of you. Some of you have gotten some video snippets of my work, and some of you who like to follow on social media off of Substack see what I've been up to. But yeah, it's been a exceptionally busy year and a month. In particular, June seemed to stretch out for a long, long time, and that's not a bad thing. It thankfully was not a bad month at all, but it just seemed to last a long, long time. Sometimes things whoosh by, and for whatever reason, maybe it was because I started the month on vacation, which was nice, working vacation, but still vacation. My husband and I traveled to Marysville, Kansas, and Chicago, Illinois too. Uh, just to hang out with family and to take a road trip with our dogs and enjoy the countryside. I always liked road trips when I lived west, but you can drive forever and not get out of California. I mean, literally from tip to tip, I think it's about 15, 20 hours if you drive straight through. But now living in the South, I could drive for a long, long time and cover at least 2 or 3 states. So it's just nice seeing the open road, seeing the atmosphere of the country, especially post Trump, and just enjoying being still, enjoying moving at a slower pace than you do in your everyday. And thankfully we had the house pretty much together. We still have things to do, but we're moved in, we're settled in. And we also adopted a new little fur baby named Minnie Mouse. So we decided we're just gonna get up on the road and see how Minnie Mouse does on road testing, and then go about our business. So that's what we did. First couple of weeks in June were that, either on the road or hanging out at friends' houses, uh, having breakfast, lunch, dinner with relatives. Didn't get to see it. Me personally, I didn't get to see a ton of friends just because the primary goal was for me to see my two surviving brothers. It's just me and them now. All of my sisters have passed on, gone to glory. So the goal was to see them because they have had some health challenges, and everybody's older than me, even though I'm getting old. So wanted to make sure I embrace them and see them because you just never know these days, or you never know anymore. And just enjoyed spending time with a few friends. One friend who used to live in California. We are all amateur radio people, and we participated in Baker to Vegas together and did lots of things together. And she decided that I need to get the heck out of California, and lives in beautiful part of Illinois. It's a big suburb almost to the Wisconsin border of Illinois, and is much less stressed. And so we got to see her and kind of hear her story and swap our stories, and it was good. It's good. So we got another friend to visit in the land of Lincoln whenever we are that way. But of course, didn't ever stop the writing, and June was also a busy month in terms of consequential things. Not necessarily the Seven Deadly Sin month. That thankfully that's been kind of muted. you know, I mean, it's still happening, sadly, or whatever, in so many parts of the country, and obviously in some of the big blue cities like Los Angeles. But Kira Davis and I were actually in Chicagoland around the same time. Beautiful Kira, just listen to yourself. And because her son graduated from DePaul. And we were texting back and forth, and I said, when you live someplace where people don't really give a rat's ass, it kind of goes over your head. And then suddenly I'm in the Chicagoland area, and I go into Target, and it's Pride all over the place. As well as when I went into Chicago, the area where one of my brothers stays, um, it's all about the Pride. So that was kind of a culture shock, actually, which means I've been living in the South and getting used to all of that stuff of just not having it in your face. Yeah, it's like, be who you want to be. I don't care if you're an adult. I really don't care. I just don't necessarily want it shoved in my face, pure and simple. So that was an interesting culture shift for me, that I am now officially a Southern girl, and have it's leaving the city life behind every chance that I get, frankly. So yeah, June was a huge month. The anniversary of the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe v. Wade, and still have leftists weeping, gnashing teeth, rending their garments, and coming up with all types of ridiculous um, things to try to blame on the fact that Dobbs got overturned and we need a national abortion ban back. So I wrote a great deal on that, just because, again, the cause of life is very dear and precious to me. I have dear friends who, Stephen Holland, I interviewed him, I think a year ago or so, who was a product of rape. And his mother was also, she had developmental disabilities and so many other things wrong with her, yet she refused to, and she was raped, and she refused to abort little Stevenson, and managed to have him. He has grown into a wonderful man who worships the Lord, who has a huge ministry, a pro-life ministry, with his beautiful wife Rachel, who's also a friend of mine, and their daughters, three beautiful daughters, which would not have been had his mother not chosen life. So I hear too many of these stories than not, as well as, it's just God created us uniquely, each and every one of us, and no matter what the circumstances of our being, He has purpose and will for us. So to just cavalierly, or even in a moment of struggle or pain, to destroy that life, it's just not something I've ever been on board with. Even when I wasn't a strong believing Christian, it just never resonated with my soul at all. That you destroy a life once it's conceived. So yeah, I tend to write a lot about that. So go over to Red State and read my Dobbs decision anniversary piece. I believe the anniversary was June 24th, so it should be right around there. And I also wrote a little bit about it on 1819 News. It seems to be this factioning off of the pro-life movement, rather than joining in unity to infuse a culture of life, to restore that back to people's hearts and minds, because really that's the bottom line. You can get as many laws as you want and criminalize it as much as you want, but until people's hearts and minds change, you are not going to make any type of dent or transform the culture. And so I know there are several pro-life ministries and pro-life people who are doing that, but then you've got another faction that they're all about we must criminalize the act of abortion, including criminalizing the mother. They call themselves abortion abolitionists. While I see some of their arguments and they're interesting, I just cannot get on board with that lack of compassion and that stance. I really cannot. I cover it. mention them, in the coverage, obviously, of pro-life causes and all that stuff, but really, it's a sad situation because I think both sides can work together and be way more effective, but this is what Satan does. He, you know, gets Christians and pits people who could do good together against each other, and then, they're defending their little corners of the universe and not paying attention to the bigger picture. So, but I wrote about that a little bit in 1819 News. Let's stop fighting about abortion and agree on life. That opinion piece, and also did write about Pride Month. In light of what I mentioned earlier, but that it's still targeting children. It's like, again, if you're an adult, God gives us free will. Do whatever the heck you want to. I don't need to know about it. But leave children alone. Leave the kids alone. And there's too much that still goes on in all of this. Again, the in your face thing that tries to rope children in. So that is, definitely the big bookends of what happened in June in terms of politics and story. And of course, you've got commencements up the wazoo. As I mentioned, dear Kira and her son, actually her daughter Ruby, also graduated from high school, but her son graduated from DePaul. I had a nephew who graduated from, I think it's St. Louis University. I'm bad at that. His sister graduated from Lane Technical High School. Go Lane Go, my alma mater in Chicago. And I also wrote a lot of Feel Good Friday pieces that centered around moments that happened in commencement or special commencement, because it's just rich this year. So, hey, and commencement seemed to last from May all the way to the end of June. So, lots of stories on that. If you're into feel good stories, I love covering politics. Don't get me wrong. Like the fight, like the analysis and all of that fun stuff. But I also like talking about the human condition and the human story and what's good about our world that has nothing to do with the political scene. And so Feel Good Friday lets me do that. I do it a little bit over at 1819 News, but not as much. And do have a book, shameless self plug. I should hold it up, but let's see if it might be somewhere in the bookshelf. Let's check. No, it's not in this bookshelf, but again, I'm rearranging and I need to do better promo to have it, because you see every podcaster or author with their book or whatever widely displayed. But I co-wrote this book with a gentleman named Benjamin Janey. It's called The Making of an American Hip Hop Tycoon. And it is just such one of those American stories. And, it's that, don't let the hip hop throw you off. It's talking about his life, which has a lot of rich detail, some tragedy, but shaped him into basically being a young man who trailblazed and transformed the music industry and then the fashion industry. And now he's like a professor, I think, at Chapman University and in the business school and doing some awesome things. So it was nice contributing to that and being a part of that. And those are the types of stories I like to promote and be a part of. So maybe one day I will have another book full of those stories or someone else's stories. But for right now, it's doing the 1819 and the Red State and the Substack. And, got to do a little bit of live coverage of the Marjorie Taylor Greene Moms for Liberty event happened on Saturday in Huntsville, Alabama. And it, strange enough, got to actually meet I was there to cover. I wasn't interested in necessarily meeting Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's an interesting character. I don't necessarily agree with everything that she does or says, but I am of the opinion that every party they got their flamethrowers and they've got their reasoned, principled, always about the law and the books. And then you got the ones who can actually articulate what the two have in common. And so I think they are all needed in any political party or any cause. You need people to get your attention. You need the ones who can translate it for you, and then you need the ones who can put it down the brass tacks of why it should line up with the Constitution or the law and all that stuff. So uh, Taylor Greene is definitely a flamethrower, but not without cause, not without effect. And from this event, she's really a whole lot different, and there's a whole lot more to her than the media gives credit. Again, she's this media lightning rod, and so they paint her in whatever form they like to paint her in. And after hearing her speak and seeing her relate to people, because again, when you're that fly on the wall, and I met a lovely young cameraman with Fox 54. Everybody's young now. I will be 59 in August, so everybody's real young now. It's kind of funny. But met this lovely young man, Fox 54, named Caleb, and we talked a little bit, compared notes a little bit. And I said I asked, how many political things have you covered? And he's just like, oh, I'm kind of new at this. And it's like, oh, that's fine. I said, I've been doing this a while. And I said, you hear politicians and you see them, and most all of them have a script. They're canned lines, things that they say over and over again. Uh, they put on the face. And I said the reason why, Donald Trump and the media doesn't get him and they don't understand him is that he's a wild card. He's always interesting. There's always something new and fresh about covering him. Doesn't matter where you like him or hate him. He's interesting. And he never, he may say some similar things, but he always comes up with something new and something different and a different spin on it. And Green is kind of that ilk. I don't think she's as articulate as certain, politicians are, obviously, but there's more to her than meets the eye. And in that kind of low key space of friendlies, you got a chance to see a little bit of that. So I was a little bit impressed, frankly. She's not your typical politician, even though that is the way the media paints her. And then I had the most lovely moment. I mean, I, went to the restroom before all the big stuff started, and there was a woman in a flowered dress. Billy, an officer, was singing the national anthem, and so I stopped and waited once I left the bathroom to wait until that was done. And a woman in front of me, a little woman, was in a pretty flowered dress. And again, I didn't put two and two together. And it was over, and I turned around, and she turned around, and it was Marjorie Taylor Greene. And she walked up to me, and she said, "Hi, good evening, how are you?" And she shook my hand. And I said, "It's nice to see you." And that was it. So, that was also an interesting, okay, a moment of, I'm going to be nice to someone coming out the bathroom. I mean, hey, she didn't have to. She had things on her mind. She had a presentation to give. But so that was also a nice telling moment that, kind of one of those things I'll write in my little journal as a memory of my political coverage. But that capped off the month, and it's also been a month of fun radio. Got to do Red State Radio for anybody who wants to know what's happening on Red State with Red State rioters. Susie Moore, our deputy managing editor, does a wonderful little radio spot, and she asked me to come on every so often. So I'm always honored and always like talking about politics and what I write about and the reasons why I write it. I enjoy expounding on that a little bit more, because, or a little bit insider baseball if I have it. So I was on there. The most recent one was, I believe, the 29th. So go over to Red State Radio or redstate.com and find the episode, and you can listen to me pontificate about California politics, which, I still got my toe dipped in there. I got my toe dipped in Illinois. I did a couple of Illinois. I did a couple of pieces about the candidates that are running for Dick Durbin's seat. And one of the bloggers who I mentioned, because I always try to find the local folks, because I'm sorry, legacy media sucks, and they don't know what they're talking about, and they only write about what they want to write about. Some of the real juice comes from legitimate, on the ground citizen journalists and bloggers. So one of the bloggers actually emailed me and thanked me for using his piece, and asked if I was interested in another Illinois-based story. So I'm going to get back to him on that, because it's like I have insider knowledge, having grown and been raised in Illinois, and the politics really hasn't changed much, and it's very similar to California. And then California, know those politics like the back of my hand, so tend to cover that a lot. And Alabama, again, corruptions, politics is politics, but getting to know the players and the interesting little critters around here, as well as gaining some allies and some cool people. And at the Marjorie Taylor Greene event, I ran into several new friends that I've made in Republican women and Republican circles. So it was fun. It was a fun time. So I will be here for July. Lots to cover, I am sure. Uh, Capping off June on Red State is, a piece about some Iranian illegal immigrants that got indicted on for threatening an ICE officer, and that's that needs to be done away with and divested with. However they're planning on doing it, I vote for sending them back to Iran quickly and making them go to Fordo and clean up the mess. But rule of law and due process and all of that stuff. So we'll see what happens to them. As well as I did a great recap in a video cap of the Marjorie Taylor Greene protests from Saturday, which was kind of hilarious. So I strongly recommend you go and check that out. And on this recap, I will also post that video that I did. I'm still laughing about it. It's quite hilarious. And once you read the piece and see the video, you'll understand why. Well, it has been fabulous touching base with you again. Happy July 4th, if I do not talk to you before then, which I probably will not. But happy July 4th. That's coming up real quick, which is, again, amazing me. And to end this, welcome to all of my new subscribers. I'm still amazed that, and I thank you that you still are interested in what's happening in my orbit, still supporting, still wanting to see where the political calculus goes and what my insight and opinion is on it, even though in the last several months I have not been able to patch in a whole lot. But again, working on improving that. Look forward to hearing from any of you again. If you want to drop a line or an email, the notes are open, the DMs are open on Substack, as well as you have my email, and you can find me on Red State. You can find me on 1819 News. Those are the places, and still doing stuff with Independent Women's Forum when I can. So if that is something that interests you, check that out. So you have an awesome beginning of July, awesome July 4th, and I will catch you on the other side. It's Jennifer Oliver O'Connell. As the Girl Turns, you can find me on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, Truth Social, Getter, Gab, and even Blue Sky. Have an awesome day, afternoon, evening, weekend. Ciao.